In a world filled with information, where do you turn to get straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money? Lock it in to the longest running financial talk show in Arkansas and let us help you build the bridge between information and application. Real financial change begins right here, and it starts with you.
It's showtime! Woo!
This is the Get Ready for the Future show.
Hey, we have a big show
took care of those concerns, and we helped her to understand. And when she left, she had a completely different demeanor. She had a completely different attitude about things, and she felt really relieved that some of her concerns had been answered. And I will tell you, if you don't have that experience going on with your advisor, you might need another advisor.
Hey, you aren't boring, so why do you think your finances should be? Planning is not boring. We've debunked myth one. We've got 4 more, but we're going to step aside, and when we come back, talk to Dr. Wade Pfau, Professor of Retirement Income and the Director of the RICP program.
At GenWealth, one of our standards is we believe in balance, and it's really a twofold standard. For our team, we believe that you've got to work and you've got to do things the right way, but you also have to have some time off, and you can't do your job if your job is all you do. For our clients, we believe in balance because their investment portfolios need to take as much risk as they need to achieve their goals, but not so much risk that they lose everything that they've got. Balance is incredibly important in both our team and for our clients.
There's always been power in standing up for what you believe in, challenging the status quo, and never accepting the ordinary. What about the rest of your life? Will you settle? Or will your retirement be more? More fun, more family than finances, more than just investments. Connect with us at GenWealth and harness the power of more.
Did you know there are a ton of financial resources on GetReadyForTheFuture.com? No? Well, bookmark that page for later because the Get Ready for the Future show is back.
A GenWealth advisor always standing by, ready to meet with you. We have offices in West Little Rock, Hot Springs, El Dorado, Conway, Bryant, and Shreveport, Bossier City area in Louisiana. To reach any of those advisors, you can set up a first complimentary appointment by calling 501-653-7355, or you can reach out via email info@getreadyforthefuture.com. Scott Inman, John Shrewsbury, Janet Walker back on the Get Ready for the Future show talking about 5 myths holding back your finances, and we're pleased to be joined once again by Dr. Wade Pfau. Dr. Pfau is the Professor of Retirement Income and the Program Director of the RICP program at the American College of Financial Services. He's also a best-selling author. He has joined us on the program before. Welcome back, Dr. Pfau.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be back.
We are certainly excited to have you. And as we dive in here, we mentioned just a moment ago that our topic today is myths that could be holding people back in dealing with their finances. Specifically in regard to retirement, let's kind of dive in there. What's the biggest myth, or if you want to take one or two, that really confounds trying to have a successful retirement?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that when we're really looking at that sort of issue, that there's an idea that there's one financial product or one financial tool out there that will address all retirement risk and be the one-size-fits-all solution for retirement. That at the end of the day, rather than just looking for that one tool, you really have to think more broadly about using different tools and bringing it together into a retirement plan. But that's always the issue. It's retirement risk is different, and just trying to rely on one particular approach or tool isn't really going to work at the end of the day.
Dr. Fowl, as you think about where we are in this pandemic and as it rolls on and it deepens in some ways, what are the consequences that Americans are facing in their retirement picture? What are the biggest challenges that you see out there that's been wrought by this pandemic?
Well, there's a number of things. I mean, the first thing to consider is just the reality about work and being able to work. And working longer at the end of the day is the best way to get a retirement plan back on track. But if people involuntarily lose their jobs or are forced into retirement for lower they had intended to, didn't think of that as part of their plan, that can create a lot of financial plan. And beyond that, we've also seen market volatility. At this point, the markets have recovered from their major losses in March and April, but we don't know still. There's a lot of uncertainty about what can happen. And then the other major issue that retirees need to address interest rates have been plummeting in the last months. They were already low to begin with. But now when we're talking about 10-year treasury yields around 0.6%, I don't think anyone ever imagined something like that would happen. And that just makes it all the more expensive to be able to fund retirement. You can't rely on interest as much. And so today's retirees are really going to struggle with not only may their job outlook be different than they anticipated, but retirement's becoming a lot more expensive because interest rates are also. It's really a triple whammy when you think of the market volatility.
Janet, I want to jump in here and speak to what Dr. Fowl is saying here. I saw some numbers the other day that back as early as 2000, if you took a 50-50 portfolio of stocks and bonds and you looked at the dividend yield of the stocks and the interest rate on the bonds, you could basically come up with about a 4% yield on that portfolio. Today, that's about 1.6%.
Yeah, so they're not really going to be able to take that approach at this time. Dr. Fowl, in what you were just talking about, you really did address part of what I was about to ask you, which is about what things that retirees who want to retire this year, people who want to retire this year, what do they need to consider? You really did very well address the interest rates, but you also mentioned volatility, and I'd like to take a little bit of a deeper dive into that one specifically. We've mentioned it, but if a retiree, soon-to-be retiree, is out there listening, what do they need to know about it?
Well, at the end of the day, they need to know that it's important to stick to your plans. And for years now, markets have been going up in this unprecedented bull market. And we got the reminder that markets are volatile and they can lose a significant amount. Has happened in March in particular. It was important to stay the course with that, because if you didn't panic, if you stood steady, you'd be back to not having experienced major losses at this point. But we know that with human behavior, that's not always how people do behave. That a lot of individuals did panic after seeing major stock market losses and may have sold off their positions and decided to be safer to be in cash at that. And then they missed that subsequent recovery. And time and again throughout history, we see that sort of phenomenon where if you panic and sell after down, it's really gonna make it a lot harder to achieve any sort of accumulation or goals for how you want to spend for that retirement.
We are talking today on the Get Ready for the Future show with Dr. Wade Fowl, a professor of retirement income and a best-selling author. And I want to jump back to something you said just a few moments ago. You know, we have used the analogy of a tool chest a lot when it comes to financial investments. You said there's not just one tool that fits all jobs, and we're fond of saying we don't pull out a wrench if you need a hammer. There are multiple things that you can use in the context of a holistic financial plan, and that approach. On a previous visit on our show, you talked about one of those tools. You spoke very favorably about utilizing annuities in retirement. Talk to us a little bit about it. Are you still in favor of those, and what value can they provide to retirees?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the annuities when they have that lifetime protection, so you're getting a guaranteed lifetime income. That can be a part of retirement income planning, because it helps to address this major risk that we're not as used to thinking about, which is we're now living off of a pot of assets we've accumulated, and we just don't know how long that money needs to last for. We don't know if our retirement's going to last to age 70 or 80 or 90 or 100. And the annuity helps to manage that risk by identifying the fact that, well, some people won't live as long, but other people will live longer. We'll make sure you get an income no matter how long you live in a way that an investment portfolio just can't do. Now, when it comes to changes with annuities, with what's happening with the global pandemic at this point, the lower interest rates have an impact. They also lower the payout rates on annuities. And a lot of times people think, well, now would be a bad time to consider an annuity because you then are locking in today's low interest rates for forever. But the reality about that is, for somebody who's retiring today, the relative case for an annuity becomes stronger in a low interest rate environment. And while it's true the cost of an annuity goes up when interest rates are low, the problem with investments is the cost of funding retirement with investments grows faster than the cost of funding retirement with annuities. Because annuities, they have three sources of payments. You're spending on your principal, you're spending interest that the insurance company is earning from bonds, and then you're getting this mortality or longevity credit that you get from risk pooling. And that third component's not affected by interest rates. Mm-hmm. So the cost of funding retirement with investments is really growing faster than the cost of funding retirement with annuities when interest rates are low. And that's why their relative case becomes stronger, not weaker in a low interest rate environment. And I think people may miss that point sometimes because we're used to hearing about things like the 4% rule of thumb. This is how much you can safely spend from an investment portfolio. And that rule of thumb, it exists in a vacuum. It doesn't account for the fact that interest rates are lower now than they've ever been. And so we can't just blindly say that the 4% rule works, no matter what kind of interest rate environment we're in. The reality is you're going to have to spend less from investments when interest rates are lower. And simple rules of thumb like the 4% rule miss that point.
Dr. Fowl, I've heard this said in several different quarters, but it seems to me that there could be more risk today in the bond market than potentially the long-term risk in equities because of where we are in the interest rate environment and the possibility of rates at some point in time reversing and going up, especially with all of the free cash flow that is coming in from the government, maybe setting up a inflationary environment and having the Fed to react to that by raising interest rates. What's your thought on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly the risk of holding bonds is higher now, because it's important for listeners to understand that when interest rates go up, bonds lose value. And the opposite is also true. If interest rates go down, bonds get capital gains. They appreciate in value. And since the 1980s, that's basically what we've been observing, is interest rates have continued to come down. And that's given, if you hold bonds and mutual funds and so forth, you've been getting higher returns from bonds in a lower declining interest rate environment. But at some point, interest rates can't go any lower. And so when you hold bonds, your best prediction about what its return will be is just what the interest rate is. And if you hold the bond to maturity, you'll get that interest rate, that yield as your return. Now, if you're holding bonds and mutual funds, that's where if interest rates do go up, you'll have losses. And if you're holding on to longer term bonds, because they do generally offer higher interest rates than shorter term bonds, they'll get impacted even more by an interest rate increase. And you can see that, if interest rates go up from this low level by 1% or 2%, on a 30-year treasury bond, you could be looking at 30 or 40% losses. So it's very much like we think about with stock markets and the potential losses of holding stocks. That's a real risk of holding, especially long-term bonds in a low interest rate environment. And if you instead hold short-term bonds, well, at this stage, you're basically not getting any interest anyway. It's not much different from holding on to cash and then being exposed to inflation and inflation eating away at the purchasing power of those bonds.
Scott, I think we're getting towards the end. I don't know that he has time for the next one, so go ahead.
Yeah, we have about a minute left. We were trying to decide there if we had time to get another question out or not. But I guess we could end with this. We do want to give you the opportunity. I know you have written some books. I didn't mention any of the titles, but how can people maybe check out one of those books or get in contact with you or follow up if they have a desire to get more information about these topics?
Well, thanks. Well, my website, it's retirementresearcher.com. It's all one word. And I've written 3 books. They're all on Amazon. If you type in my name there, you'll find them. And it's Wade, and then Pfau is Pfau. So either way, you'll be able to find more information. Thank you.
Yeah, they would not have known that P there was there already today. Dr. Pfau, thank you so much for joining us. It is always a pleasure to talk to you, and hope you have a great weekend.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, and you too.
Thank you.
The Get Ready for the Future show continues with 5 myths holding back your finances right after this.
The beauty of a potter's work is that each item is unique. No piece is the same. That's what makes it art. At Gen Wealth, we believe your financial plan should be unique to you. Through our process, your money is carefully shaped around your goals and dreams. Your future, artfully crafted. Call us today or visit our website and connect with us. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors.
At Gen Wealth, one of our standards is that we have a unified purpose. Now there's an internal aspect to that, and then there's an external aspect. All of us internally on the Gen Wealth team are working toward one purpose, but that purpose is to work with you, our clients, in whatever need you may have. John F. Kennedy said, efforts and courage are not enough without purpose and direction. I believe that one of the reasons many people have trouble getting up and going to work on a Monday morning is that they don't have purpose and direction in what they're doing. But we do, every day, every week, and that's your purpose. Whatever it is that you want to do in retirement, we're here to help you meet that purpose, which means you and the Gen Wealth team all together have a unified purpose.
Back with more straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money on the Get Ready for the Future show.
Many ways to check out the Get Ready for the Future show. We are live streaming every Wednesday morning at 11:30. You can watch that on Facebook or YouTube, and of course on our radio broadcast 10 a.m. all across Central Arkansas on Saturday mornings. Scott Inman along with John Shrewsbury and Janet Walker. Today's topic, 5 myths holding back your finances, and we paused there for our interview with Dr. Wade Pfau. By the way, if you jumped in on the middle of that, please go back and check us out on podcast to hear the entire interview. I can't thank him enough for joining us, taking the time. I know he's a busy guy. His time is very much in demand. And I reference him sometimes in client meeting rooms, John, because there's the financial advisor world, but there's also the academic world. And we really didn't highlight that. That's where he comes from. This is analyzing numbers and data and basically shooting you straight on the realities of a 21st century retirement.
Scott, I've been through the RICP program at the American College, and Dr. Pfau was really the author of that program, and I can tell you that it's the real deal.
Yeah,
and
it
is. I've got 30-something years in the industry, and I couldn't just mail it in, Janet. It was not something that I just could go, oh, yeah, I know all that stuff. It is really very in-depth and very intense, and that's really what I really appreciate about him and his comments on our show is he's bringing a different perspective to this.
Well, it's not a different perspective in terms of whether we agree or disagree.
No,
we have the same thought process, and that's what I really like about it is that I think where you're going on the perspective is we come from the perspective of advisors and he's in the realm of academia.
Right.
But I really like it when those two are in alignment, and I think that that's a good litmus test, if you will, for you as a consumer when you're getting ready to retire. If you're meeting with an advisor who doesn't pass that test, where can I put this plan against the logic and the facts that science and math bring to the equation, and if it passes that test, you've probably got a pretty good plan. If, however, it's here's the product of the day because that's what our company wants me to sell you, or it's, an emotional type of deal, that's not going to pass the test. You have to have a plan that will stand up to academia in this whole process.
Scott, if your plan is based on pop culture and whatever the flavor of the month is, you probably need a new plan. I'll just say it that way. And again, that plan has to be oriented to you, not to the agenda that somebody else might have. And it needs to be based, as Janet so appropriately mentioned, on math and science, not on emotion and a hype or pitch or anything like that.
Yeah, we talk about foundations of our retirement income house. These are two pillars, really, of that foundation. There's the science, and then there's the advisor side, academic and science, or academic and advisor side coming together on that. So I love what he said about the financial tools. We talk about that all the time. A product is not a plan. We don't want to give you a hammer when you need a wrench.
Right.
It is the holistic planning process. So today's topic, 5 minutes holding back your finances. We talked about planning in the first segment, and we don't believe planning is boring. That is a myth, that planning is boring. We plan a lot of things in our lives that we enjoy. Planning for retirement or planning for financial independence should be no different. Myth number 2 is I don't have enough to get started. Now, this can really manifest itself early on in someone's life as you maybe don't have the income that you currently or that you likely will later in life, and you see there's no margin there, right? Well, you have to create some. Everybody can create some margin, increase cash flow, and even if it's $50 a month, $100 a month, get started. So I don't think there is really an excuse to say you don't have enough to get started.
Janet, I want you to riff on this for just a second, because I know in your career as well as mine that you've sat down with people that are probably past broke, below broke.
Yeah.
And you've been able to find somewhere in their budget enough money to get started. And it really doesn't mean that they have to have a big lump sum.
No, it doesn't mean that at all. I mean, if I go back and look at the time, the crisis time in our lives when we had so much medical debt because of my husband's situation, we cut a lot of things that we had previously considered as necessities. But when life dealt us the hand that it did, we redefined necessities. And I think that absent a crisis, if you don't want to be in a retirement crisis later, you can redefine necessities too. It's really not that difficult to find, even if it's another $50 or so per month, that's feasible for most people to do. And if it's not, then I would say you need to do some reevaluating anyway. Maybe it's time for a second job for a period of time. Maybe you need to knock out some of the debt that you have. It's possible for you to get to a point where you can invest. And I've talked a little bit about this. My daughter Bethany is 14. She just started working. She's working for the purpose of saving money for a car. She's only gotten one paycheck so far, so we're real early in this. But what we're going to talk about is after we see how much money she earns this year, we're going to look early next year at, does it make sense for her at 14 to go ahead and make a prior year contribution for a Roth IRA, or does she need to save all of that for a vehicle? Because she's not going to be able to get the vehicle for a couple of years anyway.
Right.
So it might make sense to go ahead and do that. And then she's got time on her side. And if a 14-year-old can, have enough money to get started, then I would say wherever you are, you too can get started.
It is not where you come from. I can absolutely tell you that, because I come from a pretty stark place. Lived in a shotgun house, and the railroad ran right beside my house. Mm-hmm. And so it's not where you come from. It is really all about where you're headed, and you've got to move in that direction. When you think about how to scrape up some money to begin investing, let's talk about something that a lot of people really kind of go, oh, no, now you're meddling in my savings here. But I want to talk to you really straight. Think about your tax refund that you get. Mm-hmm. Understand what a tax refund is. A tax refund is made up of you giving the government your money every paycheck after paycheck, only for them to hand it back to you at zero interest when you file your tax return. Now, here's a question for you. What did you do with your last tax refund? Was it productive for your financial future, or did you blow it? there's probably, I don't know, maybe $50, $100 a month
easily for most people
that you could put away and save and invest, as opposed to playing this back and forth game with the government and then blowing the money at the end.
Yeah, and let me say, if that's money that you use for something else, if you go, I can't use that for investments because I don't know, that's our vacation money, we have to do that. Okay, even if you're going that route, let's just stay on the tax refund for just a moment. We want you to be at a point where you either get back about $1,000 or you have to pay in and have it to pay about $1,000, somewhere in that window. Mm-hmm. But we've seen people who get back, every year, $7,000 or $8,000. That's an interest-free loan, like you were talking about, John, to the government every year, and you're not putting that money to work. Even at the low interest rates that we have now, put it in the bank and let it earn a little bit and then utilize it to move forward, whether it's partly for vacation and partly for investments, whatever. But you don't want to be in a situation where you're getting that much back on your taxes.
Scott, one other thing I'll mention on this is that you really have to understand at Gen Wealth, we value all levels of wealth. If you've got $50 a month that you want to put into an IRA account, we're going to open an account for you. We've got an advisor to do that for you. There are no account minimums here. We don't go by what your pocketbook looks like. We go by what your future looks like.
Right.
Let me say this too. If you believe this myth that I don't have enough to get started, let me cast a little vision for you. Most of the people we work with who are on the cusp of retirement hail from humble beginnings.
That's right.
And some were not even that lucky. I think about two that came in the Little Rock office within the last couple of months. They probably have never made more than $40,000 a year. Now that may be a lot if you're thinking I don't have enough to get started. You may not make that, but someday you should be able to achieve that. They probably never made more than $40,000 a year in their life, and they both walked in with more than $1 million in assets. So you think about how they did it. They did it by the grind, the discipline, casting the vision, and having a plan. So our third myth now, investments alone are enough. And I think Dr. Fowle did his part in shattering this myth in the last segment. I will say, as I thought about this, I'm not sure that people or investors really believe this myth. I think this is a myth that is perpetuated by our own industry, guys.
Yeah, by people who are not planners, people who are product salesmen, if you will. There is a difference between an advisor who will sit down with you, take the time to listen to you, to get to know your situation, and put together a personalized plan, and then from that plan, determine what products are best fit to be able to implement that plan. There's a difference from that person compared to the advisor who just says, oh, you got $250,000, here's a product that's great for you. Well, how do you know that? It has to be personalized. The investment product alone, just like Dr. Fowle said, that is not the solution. You have to look at it in a holistic manner. How is this all going to work together?
Let me be blunt here. There are two types of people in this industry. There are those that are planners and go through this process like we're describing here, and there are those that are very well crafted at putting lipstick on a pig. And when they start with that, when they start with a product pitch, I can tell you the lipstick is out and they're chasing the pig around the barnyard.
Well, and guys, we've seen that so many times because people will come into our office after having visited with another advisor in the industry, and they're wanting to get a comparison. So they've had that experience, and they come in, and we've literally had them just go, here's my statements. They push them across the table to us and go, what do you want me to do? And they're done talking because at their last advisor experience,
that's what happened.
That's what happened. And we just kind of push the papers back to them and go, let me understand you a little bit, and let me understand what's important to you, and go from there. It's a very different experience. It's not about the product.
And I will tell you, Scott, that products, and I think our industry has perpetuated this myth that you're correct about that. Products are sometimes described as a Swiss Army knife. It slices it, dices it. It'll, take the garbage out when it's raining or whatever the case may be. That there is no one product out there that is the savior of your retirement. If there was, I can guarantee you Janet and I would have found it over the years, and we would have it front and center and be, trumpeting it on every program that we have. But we don't do that. The plan is the real savior of your retirement, of your financial future. And you've got to go through the planning process to understand and get the benefits that planning offers.
Just like there's no magic number, we say that all the time as far as how many assets you have, there's no magic product either. We'll be back in just a moment.
A game warden noticed how a particular fellow named Sam consistently caught more fish than anyone else. The successful fisherman invited the game warden to come along with him and observe. So the next morning, the two fellows met at the dock and took off in Sam's boat. When they got to the middle of the lake, Sam stopped the boat and the warden sat back to see how it was done. Sam's approach was really simple. He took out a stick of dynamite, lit it, and threw it in the air. The explosion rocked the lake with such a force that dead fish immediately began to surface. Sam took out a net and started scooping them up. Well, you can imagine the reaction of the game warden. When he recovered from the shock of it all, he began yelling at Sam. He said, "Hey, buddy, you can't do this. I'll put you in jail. You'll be paying every fine there is in the book." The game warden was just incredulous. Sam, meantime, just simply set down his net, took out another stick of dynamite. He lit it, tossed it this time in the lap of the game warden with these words: "Are you going to sit there all day complaining, or are you going to fish?" For some of us, the same question could be asked about our retirement. This is John Shrewsbury with Gen Wealth Financial Advisors. Whether it's trying to find the best investment or just worrying about the stock market, a lot of folks seem frozen with retirement indecision, and that very well could lead to an explosion of your own, an explosion of your dreams for a comfortable future. Plan now for your time on the lake or wherever your dreams take you.
You ain't heard nothing yet. Buckle up, because we're back with the Get Ready for the Future show.
5 myths holding your finances back. That's the topic of today's Get Ready for the Future show. We enter our final segment. We've been through 3. I want to kind of put a bow on that third one real quick before we go to 4. We talked about investments alone are enough. That's the myth, that investments alone are enough. And the reason I kind of said that I don't think people or investors or near-term retirees believe this is that we've heard countless stories of people getting ready to walk away from work and have saved all their life in their 401k, and they tell their coworkers, they tell their friends, they have no idea what to do next. They have no idea what to do with that 401k to distribute it to themselves as income in retirement and make it last for the rest of their lives. If that's you, you can reach out to a Gen Wealth financial advisor. That's what we do every day, is build retirement income plans for our clients. Our number is 501-653-7355. Again, it's 501-653-7355 for a complimentary first appointment. Or you can email us, just send it to info@getreadyforthefuture.com. All right, so myth number 4, I have plenty of time, so I should wait. That's myth number 4 that could hold your finances back. And as I pitch to you, John and Janet, I think another way to phrase this is, I'm too busy making ends meet right now. I'll worry about that later.
Or I'm young and I'm living my life and I'm enjoying life right now. I'll get serious about saving later.
I mean, retirement is a lifetime away when you're in your 20s. It does not have any sense of urgency about it.
So, Scott, I'm going to channel Karl Rove, the political commentator, and hold up, for our radio listeners, I'm holding up a whiteboard, but I'll describe this to you. And on the whiteboard, we have the story of Mike. Now, Mike is 22 years old. He starts saving at age 22, and he's going to save just $200 a month. until age 28. And then he's going to stop saving. So he only saves 6 years. The total investment that Mike is going to make is $14,400. Now, let's assume, Janet, that he saves this in his IRA and he just stops and leaves it alone. It's only $14,400. Think about all the temptation, first of all, to blow that up, to go get, a car with that money and pay the penalty or whatever the case may be. But Mike is a smart guy. Mike is going to be very diligent, and he's just going to save over that 6-year period of time, and he's going to stop. If we let that compound at an 8% rate of return until age 67, Mike will have in his retirement account $446,000. He only invested $14,400, as opposed to Larry, who did something completely different.
So Larry was the king of procrastination, and Larry waited until age 28. Actually, that's probably a prince of procrastination. We have people who wait until they're 50.
That's right.
Anyway,
Yeah,
he gets a little bit of a procrastination title here, though. So he waits until age 28 to get started. He also saves $200 a month. We're looking at the same rate of return between the two of them, but he continues to contribute from age 28 until age 67. So as opposed to the $14,000 that Mike put in, Larry contributes as much as $93,000, and he winds up with $598,000. Now, if you look at the comparison here, $598,000, yes, it's more than the $446,000 that John was talking about a moment ago that Mike got. But remember that Mike stopped saving at age 28. What if he had continued? If he had continued to just save that $200 a month, every month, from age 22 until age 67, then he would have wound up being a self-made millionaire with $1,044,000. That's critical. It's so important to start early. You get that power of compound interest, the power of time on your side.
That's right. So you take what Mike saved and stopped at age 28 and let it compound. That was the $446,000. And then you add in what Larry was saving, and he continued saving through age 28 to age 67. That's the $598. So you add those two together, and you get $1,044,000.
And I just actually misread that. I think you actually wrote $1,094,000. We're going to give him another $50,000 in there. So $1,094,000. It's almost $1.1 million. At $200 a month.
We're quibbling about a few $1,000s here when we're talking about a lot.
Millionaire.
Yeah, a millionaire. And so the key, Scott, is that time is the most powerful resource that you have, especially when you're young. And it will get away from you so quickly if you're not careful.
Yeah.
You will lose this power of compound interest.
Guys, I want to go back to Larry here because we talked about the procrastination, but he's starting at 28. How many people out there listening right now are beyond the age of 28 and haven't started anything yet? Now's the time. It's absolutely time to get started.
So in contrast to the myth, Scott, you don't have plenty of time. Time is money, and you're losing it if you don't get started.
It is that illustration alone that led me to encourage my 19-year-old son to start a Roth IRA. And he is contributing $100 a month right now. If he never stops that, he's going to be that guy.
Oh, yeah.
So it is definitely important. The earlier, the better. Don't think that you have plenty of time. Time is on your side, so that's a reason not to wait. All right, so we're up to our final myth. We've got about 3 minutes to go over it, about 3.5 left in our main part of our show. It's too late for me to make a difference. So this is the other end of that story, right? If you start early, it's great, but what if you didn't? And what if we're talking to the people who are a little older? I think of a case that we had a lady who came into our office not that long ago, a 55-year-old single mom. She had been divorced for many, many years, and she had spent her full time raising the kids and were focused on them. And she said these words, "I've been focused on them. They're now out of the house. I came in to get focused on me." And she had saved maybe right at $100,000, and she needed to get serious and is doing that. And you know what? From 55 to 65 over the next 10 years, she's going to be able to get serious and make a big difference and live the retirement she wants.
Yeah, I would say don't worry about what your timeline is. You need to get started. You know, whether you're young, whether you're old, The point is get focused on what your plan needs to be.
I'm really enjoying these whiteboards.
You like that, don't you?
I do.
He's found a new toy.
I have. You don't know what you don't know. That's what I want you to understand about this, is that you may think it's too late for you. I can't make any difference. I'm not going to be able to retire. I'm going to work until I die. We have heard it and heard it and heard it. But I will tell you that we have people here at Gen Wealth as clients who have walked in with that thought process, with that attitude, that are actually retired today.
Yeah.
And, they're not living in the lap of luxury because they weren't diligent savers, but they are able to retire.
It's a comfortable retirement, really. That's so important, to be able to be prepared for retirement. But again, it's a question of when do you start, and the answer is today.
Casey has just told Sean to come over and get my whiteboard from him. No. You can't have my.
Has it been used that much already?
Well, I thought I worked it in fairly well.
Hey, I would also include people who are already retired. I mean, we've welcomed those folks into our offices too who did not have a plan.
Yeah.
Even if you've made it to the finish line and there's no more opportunity really to add assets to the pile, but you've accumulated something and you just kind of put that over as a just-in-case retirement. A financial plan can make a difference there too.
Scott, one of the things we've seen in that arena is people may be retired but not having claimed Social Security yet. And to come in and seek advice on that can make a tremendous impact positively for you on what your portfolio has to do for you in terms of creating retirement income. So it's important wherever you are to go ahead and seek wise counsel.
For those that are stepping into retirement or are already retired, here's the question for you. Are you living off a generality and hoping everything works out? I will tell you, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not going to get you through the next few years of whatever this world may deal us this time. We've been through this pandemic. We've been through all the social unrest. We've been through, you name it. We've been through a big downturn in the market, but I have no idea what's coming next.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that if you are just hoping that things are going to work out, chances are they won't work out. You need a plan. You need to come in and sit down and understand what that plan can do for you as you try to navigate the future.
The only better time to plan was yesterday. You can't go back and change that, but you can determine what you do today. And beginning that process is easy. To contact a Gen Wealth advisor, you can just call us at 501-653-7355 or reach out via email info@getreadyforthefuture.com. Did I miss the bell? I didn't hear the bell.
You did hear
rang.
It rang.
Well, it did not ring in my ear. So it is time for our final thoughts. Here's mine. We've mentioned this a couple of times on the broadcast today. Buying an investment product does not mean you have a plan. Investments do not make up a plan. And I go back to what we said about all the folks that we work with who have spent a lifetime accumulating in their 401k and they have no idea what to do next. It is different when you're accumulating than it is when you're in retirement and you are distributing. It is key to have a plan for how to do that.
I think my wrap up today would be about a point of action. What is yours? I had a meeting with a relatively new team member recently this week, and we were talking about if there's a meeting internally, we're not talking about client meetings, but if there is a Gen Wealth meeting and you don't come out of that meeting with a point of action, that is an area where Gen Wealth can grow and improve, the meeting shouldn't have happened. So what's your point of action?
Right.
You've sat and heard the majority of this show today. Be sure that you get the benefit from it. What is your point of action?
Janet, education has always been our passion for our clients. And what you need to understand from this show is that you can't possibly know what you don't know. But you need to find someone who will come alongside you and help you to understand the things that you do need to know. Retirement is possible wherever you are. It doesn't make any difference if you're 30 or 60. Retirement is possible. Sit down with a Gen Wealth advisor and let us help you.
Hey, next week we're talking markets. Our show will be called Retire Your Risk. There are lots of those out there. Ryan Dietrich from LPL Research will be joining us as well. That's all the time we have for this week's show. hope you can join us again next week.
The Gen Wealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 501-653-7355. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors is an Arkansas-registered investment advisor with securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.